All right, let's call this meeting to order, please. And if you could conduct a roll call.
Hines,
Here.
Bentley,
Here?
Topper,
Yeah.
Walker.
Absolutely here.
Jeez. Okay, on to item 3, approval of the report. Do we have any comments,
No.
questions? All right, approved. I have no report, so let's go directly to Ann for the capital project.
How about that?
How about that?
So I'm gonna be toggling back and forth between 2 documents, so bear with me, because.
Okay.
But we have the return of an actual capital update worksheet. Yeah. But I do want to walk you through it, because if you notice in the upper right-hand corner, it does say estimated year to date. And so they are provided on the actual invoices to date, so it, by all of the internal record keeping. So we're still not getting the reports from finance, but it's accurate if you combine like the total expense. Once we get the year end, it may look like more in last year than this year, because we don't know which year they may have reconciled some invoices, but the total project costs are correct. So if you look at the total, I want to just lead you across. So we always put when we started the project, after the project name. You'll see the total life approved budget. And so that's everything that you approved up through 2024 for the budget. What was expended against what you had approved. For 2025, I put the proposed number here. And the reason I put it here, not to downplay it, was because we do kind of like, adjust it and go over it. It was making like a better flow to me if we changed it here. So we have the total proposed, but that's still not yet approved. So there's going to be a column that will really be tracking things with the approved amount. So that's once we take projects which have not yet been funded or need an additional phase funded, we will enter that in that column. To the right of that, we're going to track the 2025 expenditures. And then we're going to keep projecting that year end. And again, that'll be adjusted based on if you decide to, let's defer a project, or you increase something, or we have projects which go under budget. Okay. And then the comments, and we'll start going through those to give you an update on like where we are so far with the projects. And I do apologize for those at home, because I know it's difficult to read, but in the room, there are some of the large formats. But I'm going to go through them all. Actually, let me do this so we can at least see the title on the screen. Okay. So the different ongoing projects we have: pavement, building finishings, and roof replacement. There has been nothing yet to date on those. I am going to switch my screen for pickleball. As everyone knows, the project was reviewed at the Planning Commission on March 27th. We just found out after the publication that we did not receive any appeals, which is wonderful. Which means that the planning department approval was the 11th day after that meeting. So it's effective as of April 8th from planning. We have our site development permit, and we just have the building permit. And there's there's like little administrative back and forth, but that's really going to take us through the end of the month, and we'll have that all closed out. What I'd like to show you, because I think once we start doing these things, once we start getting these projects approved, and there's a lot of excitement, which I certainly share, there's work that still needs to be done, right, before we get the project up and going. So what I'd like to do is to share with you
Do we have it?
a roadmap. No, and the reason why is because I'm trying to do, what I want to do is I want to make sure people don't print this and send it out, oh, this is the timeline.
Right.
It is a roadmap. And what's really important, like this is the path. And so this is, so you're going to see things as we look at the 2 different projects, the golf irrigation and the pickleball facility, the things that are the hardened full colors, those are pretty much set, like we know that's the timeline for those processes. So for the golf irrigation relocation, the board approved the design contract, so we're in design for that. We plan on bidding that starting May 1st. We may beat that timeline, but that would be the latest. And then when we get the actual construction contract, we really can't get it to the board until June, and then we'll be able to start construction in July. So the July, it's a little lighter color, right? And it's because until we get the construction contract, we don't know what the construction timeline is. this is really an outside end. It's like, we went through and kind of looked like all the things you would have to do in kind of a more complicated, like relocation. And if we had a cutover, which is moving from the old system to the new system, that was more than a couple of days, like a couple of weeks. So we kind of did a worst case scenario for that. And again, we're gonna know that better by the beginning of July. We'll be able to adjust that in July. So for pickleball, again, once we get that final permit, we'll be able to get the bid packet finalized out to bid for about, we want to do that for about 6 weeks. The contracting is going to take a while. For construction contracts, you kind of want to look at it a little bit differently, a little bit more closely than you would some of our other capital projects. So we do want to work with legal to review it to make sure that everything is in place and all parties are protected. And so we plan on bringing that to the board for review in August. Pending approval by the board, construction would start as early, and I'll say this, as early as September, okay? And so we're trying to align, and then what we'll do is, if for some reason the construction of the irrigation line would be longer, we need to do some coordination.
And
Oh,
does that not have to go to finance first?
it does. So that's like, I say board review, but that month it's gonna go planning.
Yeah, she
finance.
started, yes.
All of the board committees, how about that? And so you'll see this, like, there's where these two projects potentially could overlap. There are a few things to consider here, which are other variables. So with the irrigation line timeline, we have to be very, very mindful of the cutover process. If for some reason they look at it and they just say, oh boy, man, there's a whole lot of wires here, it's gonna take you 2 weeks, we really can't turn the water off in the golf course for 2 weeks. So we wanna make sure we do that a little bit later. But according to Mark, we can kind of do that towards October, so we're not looking about pushing it into 26, but we've got to really watch the weather and making sure we're doing it at a time which is favorable for turf, for maintenance of turf. Because we don't want to rush into something and create a bigger, more costly problem for us. Also, supply chain. Now, I will tell you, we've been in touch with some really phenomenal construction companies that have seen this posted on the city website, are interesting. There's lots of interest because since there aren't buyers on the tail end of new development, a lot of the housing development has slowed down. And so some of those contractors are looking for other work, and they have really great portfolios. They've done sports facilities, sports courts. And right now, they've also been balancing the potential of tariffs, and they know that pretty much through like really the third quarter stuff, they have a lot of supply on hand in the States already.
Pre-tariff supply.
Yeah.
The
Yes,
reason I
sir.
bring that up, I talked to Eric LaRanger this morning from IT, and he said, recently they were paying $1,100 for PCs,
Yes.
and the latest price is $1,800. And it'll probably go up to $2,200 with 104%.
Companies all play their different games on how they're gonna balance it and leverage it. I will tell you, in certain worlds, like for instance, we spoke to Butler Buildings, because Butler Buildings it's a particular type of that shed style, and so, and they provide the steel. Like, it doesn't matter who's gonna erect it. Basically, we'll be looking for a contractor for the erector company, but it has to be the Butler Building. That is what our engineering has been designed for. All of the erector companies, they've worked together, so they've already decided they're gonna norm to ride this out at no more than 10% increases. And that's for that, and that's our big steel cost.
That's $400,000 on the total project.
But only $1 million of it is the steel. So do
here's
you know what
my-
I'm saying? So again, we won't know until we know, because they could be competitive in other areas. So
here's my question.
take that into account.
So putting it out to bid as quickly as possible
Is important.
to lock in
Yes,
pre-tariff
is
steel
critical.
is really important.
In other materials.
Why do we have to wait another month to go out to bid?
Because putting a bid document together there's lots of legalese that goes into that we need to make sure we have dialed in.
And we use-
So we're really
we use
close to that.
slow
No, we're
attorneys
really
or-
close. No. Well, no, you just want to have them to review it. Like, but between, the architect and our construction manager, like, there are certain things that you put together, but the matter of like 2 weeks isn't going to make a difference. We're looking at the latest it going out to bid mid-May. So that's not going to make that big of a difference in the cost. It just isn't.
But we also don't want to go out to bid prior to knowing more about the timing of that main irrigation line, because if we go out to bid and then there's a significant delay,
Mhm.
then the contractor's gonna come back to us and have mobilization and their planning and their sequencing of stuff. So we wanna have a pretty firm timing before we put something out that we're gonna ask them to commit to.
But it almost, tell me if I'm wrong here, it almost sounds like a two-bid process. We've got a Butler building bid, and then
No.
we've got an erector's bid.
No, so basically,
You'll have a general.
the way that, we have a general contractor. One of your subs is the erector for the Butler building.
Mhm.
No matter which erector company it is, Butler is Butler. A Butler building is a Butler
So why
building.
can't we get a bid on a Butler? All I'm
Because
saying
because
is.
it has to be a sub, it's because honestly, it's not gonna matter.
Okay, all right, well,
We've spoken to them, their pricing is set, we're confident we've done the due diligence to know that basically getting out to bid before June 1st is a big one. Like, we wanna get it out to bid, which we will.
Okay.
And then, as Jeff said, the other thing is, we can't go too early and hold a price, because everybody's putting language in their contracts if things get
Oh,
delayed
right.
because of volatility.
mhm.
Like, everybody's gonna have that same language, just so you know about, like, unknown variables. Exactly, okay. But these are things that we're all watching, and weather is another thing.
Yeah.
We want to do groundbreaking and try to do the earthwork if we can, through September, October. Knock on wood, because, these typically are Indian summer. They tend to be dry months. But generally in construction, sometimes they'll just say, oh, between October and March, you don't want to do groundwork because it rains. So, we believe we'll be okay, but we have to take all that into consideration. Or else if we rush it, you're creating a more costly project or problem to solve. So we have a lot of things that we're taking in, and it's like point to point, we have to evaluate before we get the actual timeline in, and it'll be good because we'll have these check-ins here, like, different touch points to let you know what's happening with it.
Good.
All right. So that is pickleball in a nutshell. Okay, back to the other projects, because we do have other things. So for we do a lot of other things. So for the mod replacement, it's a lie that there's nothing going on. So we have issued the RFP for financial consultant related to capital financial planning, which I don't believe is paid out of, it is paid out of this budget, yeah? Or no?
I
It'll,
think it's,
once we get proposals back,
We're gonna do it out of this one, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is in the works. The next project on there, number 6 by the chart, is the food and beverage capital projects. And so at the last board meeting in March, the board approved the additional scope of work with Synergy. So there was a kickoff meeting to get an overview of what that process will be, and they will be on site next Thursday actively to start working on that and meet with the current restaurateur to talk about their operation and take a look at that facility. We're excited to get that moving. For lawn bowling, there's no report for that. For the golf course lake liner, I do want to let you know that, so we've been kind of looking at scoping. We actually want to go through and look at the scoping for that. And one of the things to think about, just to have the information at hand, is, let's say we get a go date of construction that's going to start September, October. Once we have the cash flow and we're looking at cash flow, we were looking at that potentially a $1 million project, but it ends up being kind of fluid, right? So there's a potential that you may want to have the information to decide to do something different with the timeline. So we want to get that all queued up for the committee. And so there was money that had been, approved to kind of continue with that scoping work. And so we're proceeding with that to gather all the information that we can. So you just have all that financial stuff to measure and evaluate.
I think that's important to keep that on track.
I don't have oh, go ahead.
On the lake liner, we do have a study going on, don't we?
Yeah, that's,
For that?
yes, the scoping.
When do you think that will be done?
But that's what we're working on. So part of it was, we want to bring in the environmental people now to figure out some of those hoops that we need to jump through. And the reason we want to do that is because there is, it's just failing. And so it'd be nice to get that teed up and try to figure out.
But do we have an idea when we will have that study
It actually probably, is gonna take us about 6 months.
Okay.
Oh, so it's out there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's about 6 months.
just so we know what timing.
Yeah. Okay, for the NetSuite implementation, I don't have an update. I know Todd has been given good updates at the board meeting, so I'm gonna pass on that one. And then, so the golf bridge replacement. Where are we on the golf bridge? So, I think you know that we have both an environmental company that's been working to liaise with the different agencies. We've had civil engineers through BKF doing the survey map. And so that is nearing completion. So the next phase will be involving all the permitting with the state and federal agencies and developing the construction documents. So the scope for this will likely continue into early Q4. So hopefully we can bid it into the construction next year.
Okay.
I mean, I'm saying hopefully everything seems to be going smoothly. They've lined up a lot of the stuff with the environmental, which tends to be the little sticky wicket.
Is there anyone who has, do we have any idea of what those bridges will look like? Is it gonna be a over the top
I
cantilever?
should have that for the next meeting.
Okay.
For the golf course pump replacement. So that if you recall, we had to do an amendment to approve the filtration system. So that's being in the process of being assembled, and that should be done within, it was 4 to 6 weeks from when I wrote this, so probably within the next month that should be done. And then they're evaluating everything because they did like one pretty major like pump replacement. They got a second one. And they think with the filtration that we may not have to do the second one, so I may have a revision to that request in there that we may be able to unallocate, reallocate, I don't know what the word is. So hopefully I'll have a better update at the next meeting. If you've been trying to park around the Gateway parking lot, you'll notice like what cones are
Yeah.
dancing around the
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah.
And if you were here on Monday, there was like spaghetti in front of the Gateway
Oh, there's a
building.
lot of it still.
So this is exciting. So basically they started kind of pulling all the wires that they needed so we can make the connection from the solar panels to the basically what the power supply is gonna be. And so there is a shut off. There's probably like hundreds of flyers posted every place your eyes can land to talk about the PG&E shutdown this Saturday from 8 a.m. to 2. And that's to make the connection to the new panel, which is pretty exciting, but don't get too excited. So once everything's connected, then we need to have city inspections, and we also need to have the PG&E inspections, and then it can go live once PG&E has inspected, and we hope that will be by the end of May. So we're really close to harvesting some energy there. It's great. The next one is the pool and spa replastering. So there's a little revision to what's written in there. Okay, so this is a project that isn't a surprise. We knew we were going to put it forward. We kind of want to go to finance this and the board this month, because what we want to do is lock in the timeline with this contractor. And so we need the contract with them for them to do that. And so the money will be held, but it won't be expended till the end of the year. We'll have to give a deposit, but certainly not the full amount. But if we do that now, then we can absolutely book very time specific, September, sometime in their time range of September through October. And as you may be aware, one of the reasons we had to cancel the other contract, we got absolutely no commitment and no response from that last vendor. And, with that particular use of that facility, we need to be precise. Yes. For the entry control facility, there was just some electrical that needed to be kind of like adjusted as a result of the generator being replaced. That work is actually getting completed today, so that project will be closed out. And then for the remainder of the projects, there's no activity. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
And we're gonna bid as soon as we can, right?
Yes,
Thank you.
that's important.
We want to get the stuff together, but we're trying to be realistic.
Of course we
with-
do, but we want to be prudent
Yeah.
on our timing as well, so I think that makes sense. All right, our next item is the marketing task force.
Well, this is such a positive story compared to Ann.
Oh, come on, hers was not.
Those are some fighting words, Troy.
I just want to set
Hers
expectations.
was positive. Dwight.
Since you left.
Now that sounds like a marketing person.
Yeah, so since we last met, the marketing task force met on March 31st and on April 8th, so we had 2 meetings. Task force is making great progress towards the goal of recommendations for its May 29th meeting. Here's a summary of items. A brand guide is being developed that summarizes all of the elements to shape the community's public image and marketing strategy. Keep in mind that the target audiences include prospective residents and their adult children, realtors, current residents, staff, and vendors. A complete version of it will be a part of the recommendations in May. Values were identified to coordinate with the marketing mission and vision statements, which were already approved by the board. Values are meant to be shared with all target audiences and will be represented in marketing messages. The task force unanimously approved the following values: beautiful surroundings, connection and community, fun, recreation, and lifelong learning, inclusivity and respect, independent, low-maintenance living, and safety and security. And by the way, most of those values were determined by looking at outside sources combined with a survey that new residents took for us. So
And they're in alphabetical order. That's not a priority list.
right, and they are not numbered.
Thank you.
So a separate marketing website continues to be discussed with a focus on key design and content elements targeted at prospective residents and their adult children, along with realtors. Best practices from similar community websites provide inspiration and ideas. An outside web developer is recommended. The task force unanimously recommends that the board move forward with an RFP for the marketing website, ASAP, to be developed. Next is myrossmore.com, separate website, is targeted at current residents, staff, and vendors. Ann Peterson has identified several options for this second website to be launched at the same time as the marketing website. Software providers who make it seamless for residents to make golf times, order food, engage a personal trainer, make a room reservation, etc., are all desired. We'll see if that can be delivered. In addition, opportunities for clubs and mutuals to have an online presence and communications platform with their members is also being considered. This item will be discussed further at next month's meeting. The use of social media was discussed at length thanks to the blueprint provided by Aya and Pranjali, our board fellows from the Haas School of Business. They've been terrific. The task force is focused initially on a low effort plan to be implemented after the websites are operational. External social media will be for marketing only and not for engagement. Residential engagement or resident engagement will be planned as an element of myrossmore.com. Consistent name branding is essential marketing. It's a favorite of mine. The use of GRF, Golden Rain Foundation, MOD, Trust, Trust Estate, etc., are confusing for both potential buyers and new residents. The task force unanimously recommended the adoption of Rossmore Walnut Creek to be used externally and internally. It was recognized that acronyms will naturally follow using things like RWC, Rossmore Walnut Creek, but those will be informal and not a part of the brand guide. For example, GRF board could become RWC board. MOD could become RWC property management. Trust Estate Fund could become RWC Capital Fund. In other words, consistent naming to avoid confusion. This initiative does not impact naming of things by the mutuals. Those are controlled by their respective boards, so we're not talking about that at this point in time. A discussion was held regarding the possibility of an ambassador program. More details are being developed for what could be a way for prospective residents to engage in a tour with current RWC residents, facilitated by the marketing website. After much discussion, the next steps were determined to be discussing the concept with the RWC Activities Council and at Realtors weekly meetings. And Peterson presented a potential timeline and staffing resources needed to effectively implement these plans. She was encouraged to obtain the necessary resources for development of the marketing and myrossmore.com websites and for the name rebrand. I can't tell you how I continue to be impressed with the contributions by the members of this task force. It's been awesome. Our next meeting, if if you all want to join in, is May 13th at 11 a.m. in this room, where we will be finalizing recommendations for the May 29th board meeting. Long report, any questions?
Right. No questions. So hearing none, we'll move to item 8, which is new business. And the first item we have on there is the update of the transit service study.
Should I?
Did we have, oh, I'm sorry. I totally didn't see that.
Actually two.
All right.
This one and.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 6A is to consider a recommendation from the marketing task force for the GRF board to adopt Rossmore Walnut Creek as its brand name. Are there any questions or?
Is that a
We need a
motion? or was that-
motion. No,
I'll
we
make
need a
that-
motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, but I'd like to discuss.
Okay,
I really hate the RWC. I just.
So that's an informal thing, Maxine, that's not, that does not necessarily have to be
So I
adopted.
So-
would prefer if Dwight Walker would not we keep referring to it as RWC.
I don't know that we can
Like it,
move,
I don't
I
have
don't
to.
think we can move it.
I'm okay with Rossmore Walnut Creek.
Okay,
And we
so-
should explain, I guess, a little more of why the task force said that this was what was desired. Is because Rossmore, everybody knows Rossmore, but
No,
there,
I'm okay with Rossmore Walnut
I want to
Creek.
make sure the public at
Oh,
large understands, okay? So there are Rossmores across the country, and
Yes,
you
there are.
identified 5 boards,
Yes.
so.
5?
Mhm. Including one in Kansas that has 582 people. I haven't gotten any emails for that one.
But we also wanted to attach Rossmore to the premier community
Yes.
that Walnut Creek represents for its shopping and its medical facilities and convenience to Barton, San Francisco, all those things. So combining Rossmore Walnut Creek as a consistent messaging externally as well as internally reinforces that every time. Will residents come up with acronyms, nicknames? Yes, they will. Will Maxine use RWC?
Never.
So that's the rationale behind this name rebrand.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Can we call for a vote?
Yes. Hines,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Topper,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
So the task force had also recommended that an RFP be developed for the marketing website. And it's not on.
It's not on the
It's not on the
agenda.
agenda because we just had marketing, what was that, 2 days ago?
Yeah, I know.
So I don't know if that will then need to wait until the May meeting. If it does, it just delays it by a month.
Can we take it directly to the board?
I don't know.
Help on this.
Come again.
There was, we have the one issue here, which is to change the name. The second one was to issue an RFP, which we don't formally have on the agenda today. And so the question is, what's the best way to approach that? Do we wait till next month and put it on planning?
So if you want to physically see the RFP first, you would have to wait. If you're comfortable in the concept of issuing the RFP, knowing that you're going to receive the bids, you can proceed with the recommendation that staff issue an RFP for those services.
So
Does it matter that it's not on the agenda though? So the question is, it's not on
Yeah, it's not on
planning's
the
agenda.
agenda.
It didn't make it
Can
to
this
the
go
agenda.
directly to the board at the end of this month, or does it need to stay with planning in May?
And by the way, just a caveat that it was only, the task force approved or recommended developing an RFP.
All
It
right,
wasn't
so,
about issuing, it was about developing.
okay, so we will, I just want to clarify, because I'm a little uncomfortable with not seeing the RFP. I'm comfortable with, let's get the process rolling. And that's what,
the task force
that's
was
what the
looking for.
task force is asking.
Yes.
All right, so help.
So I think you're fine in proceeding directly to the board and getting direction to have staff prepare, and that would then come back to
Okay.
this committee.
So we'll put that onto the board agenda.
It'll
and
show up
then
on the
it will
board
return
and then it'll come to you before issuing.
Before issuing the RFP. Okay. So we don't need to do anything here. Correct. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now you are up.
Okay,
Transit study.
okay.
I'm very excited about this.
Let's get into the Zoom is the question. Let's go back to the beginning. See? Okay, so I will be going over our transit service study and then going over our ideas and recommendations for evaluating our current service. And so we'll first be talking about our current service, an update with the microtransit study, and then our next steps, which will include the equipment options, revisiting dispatch softwares, downtown coordinations, and subsidy programs. And so current service, our current service includes dial-a-bus, paratransit, and subsidy programming. And just review of our dial-a-bus. Dial-a-bus is a rideshare service. So other riders ride and are picked up and dropped off along the way, which is most effective for the service. We are currently Monday through Friday, 7:20 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we are servicing the community, the shopping center, and downtown Walnut Creek. Our downtown options are including BART, Target, Lesher, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. Residents do need to call at least an hour in advance. We are currently not open on the weekends, but we are open on holidays, and residents must call the business day before. All of our communication for weekend or holiday service is communicated through flyers that are on the buses. They are in the bus stops, and they're through the My Rossmore Bulletin emails with the schedule and the calendar for all of our holiday service.
Excuse me, Kelsey.
Yes.
Do we know the level of usage recently
For
for dial-a-bus?
dial-a-bus, yes. So we have about 150 rides per day.
And that's unique users or that's just?
So that's riders. So mostly they are round trip. You can assume that's mainly round trip. So when residents call in, we generally ask, what's your return? So we always have a return for them coming home. So it's safe to say those are round trips. So that would most likely be 75 residents per day.
Okay.
That is a best, I would generally think that would be 75. Including dial-a-bus, we do have paratransit, and it is the same service as dial-a-bus, but it is a more door-to-door service for those residents that need additional assistance, and it is registration required, and we have applications in our offices here. I have them with our front desk. They're in our transportation offices at 800 Rockview. They're available through email with fillable applications. We do mail them for anyone that would like to call, and they're for anyone that needs additional assistance. And we do more door-to-door service. Our buses will go into the entries, which is not something we do for other residents. It's only for those that need additional assistance.
And then I have a question too. I know you're gonna get to sort of next steps and what we're gonna do to
Yeah.
improve the system, but currently the system only works with a phone call. Is that correct?
Yes, currently it's just a phone call.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I've had some concerns expressed to me about people that cannot communicate that way.
Exactly, and that's something
Yeah,
we're
and I know you're gonna get
looking
to that.
into. Mhm. Okay, in addition, we do have subsidized programming. We do partner with GoGo Grandparents, which is subsidized programming through Uber and Lyft. It is also registration, but after residents register, we do subsidize $10 per trip, up to $10 or $20 per day for trips that are outside our service time and outside of our service area. And then Rossmore Fund have recently started a program that will last through 2025, that they will reimburse shared ride services through Uber, Lyft, GoGo Grandparents, taxi services for those trips that are occurring only on the weekends. And to get those reimbursements, residents will submit their receipts to the Rossmore Fund through their email and directly through their PO Box mail.
Can we discuss that for a second? So I am troubled by the Rossmore Fund, a charitable organization, getting donations to pay for a service that GRF has promised to residents. And I think it's wonderful that they have done that, but I believe it is GRF's responsibility to pay for that. And I have to believe that with the absence of weekend drivers, we're actually saving money on transit. By the way, which is a very expensive amenity.
Yeah.
About $1.2 million, I think was the
Yep,
budget last
That's the
year.
budget last year.
By the way, based on 75 riders a day, that means that costs about $50 a ride. That's a lot. But
Yeah.
with some savings, and if we had financial statements, we could see that, but I'm sure it's there. I believe we should be reimbursing Rossmore Fund for this process.
I actually agree with Dwight on that one.
Yeah, I would also agree with that. The question is, how do we go about
It has to
it?
be in the budget for next year.
It would be in the budget for next year,
Right?
yeah.
It doesn't have to be in the budget for next year. That's something
Okay.
we can certainly do within the budget of transit. We have inquired with the Rossmore Fund if that was something they would be interested in. They were not, but
Oh, really?
we can
Okay.
certainly have a donation from the,
Oh, that's how we
That
do
would be
it.
great.
That's how we do it.
and then you consider that either monthly, quarterly, annually, whatever the program ends up covering. I think they've spent about 2,000, around 1,800 to 2,000 on the program so far.
So far,
Do you have
so
that?
that's not per month, that's like
Let me see.
over the course of the program.
Do we know how many people participate in that program?
I do have that.
What do we do? That would be interesting.
They had, for January, they had 24, in March, they had 16.
Those are unique.
Yes.
Still good for those people who need it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's, yeah,
So I would move that we reimburse Rossmore Fund for the weekend Easy Rider program on a quarterly basis.
okay. What I'm hearing is that's somewhat difficult because they don't want that. Maybe we could do it in the form of a donation.
If they want to return the check, that's fine, but it's a reimbursement. It's not a donation. It's a reimbursement. It's,
Yeah.
Okay,
it's paying them for what they're paying out.
Would that be toward the future or catching up with what was?
Until their program is, until we reinstate weekend service.
weekend service.
Okay,
Okay, so your motion, so I understand it, is that we would reimburse them what has been spent to date and then on an ongoing basis,
Quarterly basis.
quarterly basis.
Until we reinstate weekend service.
I would be glad to second that.
Okay? Yes, Ted.
So I'm kind of with Dwight on feeling that this is something that is done by something that we should be doing. Maybe they shouldn't be doing it at all. And instead of just take out the middle person, and it's something that we should consider be doing on our side, not even having them get involved in it.
So
Yes.
what they are
Thank you.
offering
Thank you.
goes quite a
Yeah,
bit.
thanks, because I can't see that.
What they are offering goes quite a bit above what our weekend service ever was in terms of where they're able to go and use of any format, basically. So if we were to take it back over, there'd probably be more restrictions on, we'd want to put forth, and we're gonna talk about that in a little bit.
Okay. And I understand that Leanne is on Zoom and has a question. Oh, thank you. Thank you. But let's go Leanne and then you, okay?
Yeah, two questions for the planning committee. Should we wait to hear Kelsey's entire presentation?
That might be a good
That
idea.
there may be some answers to the questions you're asking now.
Okay.
And then also to consider if Jeff has already approached the Rossmore Fund about reimbursement and they have said they don't want the reimbursement, how would the planning committee recommend getting the funds to the Rossmore Fund? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mary?
A clarifying question, please. Given that the Rossmore Fund is a charitable organization, a donation is different than a reimbursement. From their point of view, does that matter?
No,
I'd
that's a
have to have
good
a
question.
conversation with
That's a
them.
good question. All right, Kim, are you comfortable with tabling this until we get to the end of the presentation?
No. I'm comfortable in talking about the future when we get to the end of the presentation,
Okay,
but I'm interested in making sure that GRF is paying for services that are promised to residents. And relying on a charitable organization who collects funds. When you look at their website, their mission is about taking care of people who don't have enough funds to take care of themselves. And we're taking money out of that pool to pay for a service that we temporarily can't offer, that we promise our residents. So I have a real ethical problem with taking charitable money for this purpose.
okay. I understand that, and I would agree with that. I think that if it goes beyond the scope of what we are supposed to be providing, then that raises some concerns.
So we'll hear the future will be addressed in Kelsey's presentation, I'm sure. But we're dealing with a service that's been in place now since what, November?
They started in December.
Yeah.
December.
But some of it, I mean, you can explain how it's different than the weekend service we would provide.
I don't think that is right now, though, what the concern is.
Rossmore Fund provides cards from Safeway for people to buy food.
I understand.
For people to buy prescriptions who can't afford to do that. And we're taking that money that is being paid for these rides is taking that away from potential recipients. I have a big problem with that.
That decision, though, did go through their board and they discussed it at length. I would imagine, I wasn't part of it, but I would imagine that they made those choices.
But it never came before the GRF board.
No, but it's not, I would agree with Maxine that they're separate. They have their own board and obviously thought about this as something that they wanted to provide. I agree that in some respect, it's our responsibility. But, you know, if it's beyond our scope of services, I just would like to postpone it until we get to the end of the presentation.
So just to be clear, GRF staff never approached Rossmore Fund and asked them to step in and provide this service. This is like something that an independent nonprofit organization has taken up the mantle and decided to do completely on their own accord. We certainly appreciate what they're doing and have worked to get the word out with them, but something they took up completely on their own and established and came up with the rules and the guidelines and everything else.
So just to state my case a little bit more, we could not come up with a solution. We could not, the GRF could not come up with a solution to take care of weekend service. And yes, somebody else had to step in because we weren't able to come up with a solution. Kelsey's gonna identify some solutions in her presentation, and I do look forward to that. I feel that we need to make up for 4 months, 5 months, 4 months of not providing that service nor a solution. I don't think it's right, and I think the optics are horrible that we had to depend on an organization whose mission is not to provide weekend transit service for Rossmore residents. It's not their mission.
Is that the only thing that they're doing though? Are they providing it during the week too or any time?
No, just the weekend,
Just for weekend use?
just weekend use is my understanding.
And their decision to do that gave us the time to really review our whole transportation system. That doesn't mean to say that we would not have come up with a solution had we had to do that. But they should be honored in some way, whether it's repayment or donation or whatever it is we can do. I think that should be acknowledged as well.
I could just interject from a communication standpoint. The thing that I keep coming back to is if the Rossmore Fund said no to us reimbursing, there's a reason. And I think maybe before the board says, let's give them money, someone should go
Let's-
back and
all
find
right.
out
I
why.
agree with that.
So if I could maybe suggest some words, maybe we use the words, let's explore the option of reimbursing.
I would not agree with that.
If
And you know
they
what?
have reason
They are
not
very
to.
generous people
I know
and
they are.
probably looked at saying no as just a way of, no, we're okay.
Well,
And that doesn't mean we can't write a check. We can write a check. They can send it back to us. That's fine. But the thought that we are taking Safeway gift cards out and food out of people's mouths because of this, I sleep at night, but I'm not sure how. It's not morally correct. It's not ethically correct. This is something that we should address.
Leanne has her hand up.
oh, Leanne,
Yeah, I would just maybe to Ann's comment and Peterson's comment, think about using the word explore and incorporate, could we incorporate the word honor the Rossmore Fund? How about that?
No, I'm not satisfied with that.
okay, so
I'll rescind.
So I
my
think
second.
What do we do here?
you have a motion.
We have a
and
motion.
You have a second.
Can I rescind my section? Is that legal? Oh, it's all right.
You can vote no on
You
your.
vote no. Okay,
Because
so
you seconded for discussion.
help me
So
with
it's-
the protocol. So we have a motion and a second.
Joy,
So-
do you want to repeat that motion?
Don't have it fully, but
Yeah, sorry, it's been a lot of
Yeah.
words.
To reimburse the Rossmore Fund for what they've paid.
For the.
Easy Rider program,
Mhm.
And-
reimbursements to date.
For their
and
weekend
ongoing on a
transportation.
quarterly
program.
basis for the weekend trip, yeah. Is their Easy Rider program, it's fuel.
Until weekend service is reinstated.
Until
Yeah, they
weekend
call it
service.
the Easy Rider program. Okay.
Just trying to help you.
So there's no other discussion right now.
If you have other discussion, if not, then Joy could do roll call.
Okay, Hines,
No,
Bentley,
No,
Topper,
No,
Walker.
A resounding yes.
okay, we hear you.
can I make a motion to explore?
You may.
Same thing except to explore the possibility in open discussion with the Rossmore Fund to reimburse all past and future
Easy Rider
program
program expenditures or.
for the weekend.
For the weekend.
for the weekend. Until such time that, I don't know,
We can, well, I don't know, we. All right. I would second that.
Okay. All right, roll call. Hines,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Topper,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
All right. Sorry to derail you for a little bit there, but I think that's an important, I think we just had a very important discussion and I think that it's productive. So
Okay, we're ready.
we're back to you.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh, weekend service, what a great idea.
Okay.
All right.
Some of our challenges we are and have been experiencing is weekend service, and this is due to retaining consistent weekend service because of our staffing levels. Door-to-door service due to the size of the buses, accessing entries and providing door-to-door service for all residents other than paratransit participants, which we'll go into a little later explaining why the buses and getting door-to-door service. And finding a dispatch software that works with the service and the needs of the community. And now we'll go into the microtransit study update. Just as a review, in April, I was here to submit the RFP for the microtransit study update, which was approved. We contracted with a private consultant in December of '24, and we began research in January of '25, and the goals were equipment upgrades, dispatch softwares, and service analysis. And in March of '25, circumstances led to us separating, and we are moving forward internally as staff to review different options. And this is why we are here to discuss our options that we would like to review and get feedback.
Okay.
So the reason we are separating from that consultant, they, after significant kind of input of what we were looking for and feedback, the report that they provided to us was not to a standard that we thought would be beneficial for the community and was more or less restating what we provided to them.
Wow.
So, and they had some other, it was an independent sole proprietor. So we felt we would be better served continuing on our own.
Are we able to get any money back for that?
We did not expend the
Yeah.
contract.
So
Okay.
Jeff and I have been reviewing, again, equipment options, dispatch softwares, downtown coordination, and subsidy programs. And so we're just gonna go through that a little bit. And so these are the equipment options that we are interested in reviewing and transitioning to. And so the first option we would like to kind of go into are smaller vehicles rather than our 12 to 16 passenger buses. And the first one is a side entry paratransit van. The first one is a 7-passenger. It's a 6 ambulatory and 1 paratransit. And the way this one is laid out, there are 3 seats in the back with a 2 flip down and 1 passenger in the front with an ability for a wheelchair passenger to be in the middle. The front passenger seat also can be removed to have 2 wheelchair passengers in the van as well. Another option would be a back entry paratransit van. This would accommodate 2 ambulatory and 1 paratransit. A third option would be a standard 6-passenger van. This would mean that we would keep one or two of our regular buses for the lift to accommodate paratransit residents. And then a fourth option would be a slightly larger vehicle to accommodate 12 to 15 passengers while still keeping 1 to 2 of our 12 to 16 passenger buses for the lift for wheelchair passengers.
What kind of statistics do we have on how many calls for paratransit transportation are there, as well as how many people are on the bus at any one time?
So-
And I have one more question. And when you look at these things, make sure an old person I mean, I love the idea of the smaller vehicles, but make sure that somebody actually who's old and crotchety, like some of us, tries to get into that skinny
Yeah.
little back seat.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at these types of vehicles, make sure you don't have to kill yourself in.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea behind, so the top ones that you see that have a ramp to get to that back seat, there actually isn't a front seat because that's where the wheelchair, so it's a direct access to it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
And
you're,
then,
And they're
Nice.
flip down,
That's
so they
what
can
I
stay
was
up.
saying.
yeah, so you're not having to maneuver over the top or around.
Right,
Yeah.
they stay up.
so you're walking up that ramp, is that correct?
Well, the ramp would only go down for your, if you-
For the wheelchair,
Yeah.
got it.
Or if we have
That's-
someone that has a walker, we have a list of our paratransits that need assistance for their walkers, they have their lifts, so we have 83 active paratransits currently.
Wow.
32 of those are, or not 30, 37, we have 37 about a month of wheelchair users.
Mhm.
So we would get quite a good use of this.
And then I have a question, you might be getting to this. I love the idea of the smaller vehicles. I think it's a lot more practical, but we have existing vehicles that have been paid for through a grant program. Are we looking at a way to either sell or repurpose some of those grant funds for this? How is it gonna
Yeah.
work, with the old fleet versus purchasing a new one?
So all of our buses to date are purchased through what's called FTA 5310 grant funds. So these are federal funds that come to the state and are distributed through Caltrans. And then you purchase those buses with those funds. Originally, they were at 80% and then 20% match. And then the last batch, I believe, was almost 100% that they funded. And they come with a caveat that if there's a replacement schedule based on the number of years, I think it's 7 years now, or 150, it could be 175,000 miles on the bus, then it basically becomes yours and you can either dispose of it, we've auctioned them before, or disposed of them in other ways. So if they're still within that, and I think we have 6 that are still not eligible for replacement, we would either keep those, as Kelsey mentioned, for paratransit, or you can trade them back in. The 5310 program would not cover these type of vehicles.
Do we know if the 5310 still exists?
Well, it comes in cycles,
It's very cyclical.
Yeah.
whether or not they're still gonna be available in the future is always.
Okay.
And are these hybrid or electric?
So we haven't gone to
You haven't
that
gotten
level
that
of
far.
Yeah.
detail. They do have hybrid ones. I don't think they have kind of commercial grade, all electric yet.
So these are, what you describe commercial grade in response to.
So I don't think they're commercially making
Oh, okay.
These-
all electric
this size,
minivans yet.
Right. Well,
By the way, the use of these vehicles is a different licensed driver.
It is no longer Class B.
We're getting there.
yep, we're skipping ahead again.
Yes.
All right.
When you're looking at this, you have 4 different types of vehicles. Would it be a combination fleet? Or would you be looking at just one type of vehicle that's gonna be satisfying all the needs of what we have to have done?
Mhm.
I think we're probably looking at one standardized vehicle, but we may have one that has the lift, or we may use a bus for a lift. We haven't quite gotten to that
Quite.
point. We want to get your feedback first on.
Yes.
Okay.
like I said, we have 83 paratransit, and we have 16 that are wheelchair, 3 that use a scooter, and 14 that do require lifts. So they either have trouble walking, they have walkers, or they just cannot use the stairs. And so any of these would be beneficial.
Thank you.
Move on. And why, we'll go into why we are looking at these. And I include the map because we are very large and we have a lot of entries. And one of the main reasons we are looking into this, smaller vehicles would mean easier access to door-to-door service. And I included a picture of an entry. And like I said earlier, our buses are not able to go into entries majority of the time unless we are paratransit. And because of how our buses can get in and out, we don't back up into streets, we don't back up into driveways.
Right.
And so having smaller vehicles would allow us to provide door-to-door service for other residents that are not paratransit. It would be a better service, closer service. It would also be increased comfort. Vans are much more comfortable than a 12 to 16 passenger bus. Smaller vehicles also mean we no longer need Class B or passenger endorsement. It would ideally make it easier to hire more drivers. They are more fuel efficient and they are lower cost than 12 to 16 passenger buses as well.
Yeah, some of the entries are really.
I was
The smaller ones, yeah.
Kelsey, how does this impact the union contract drivers?
This shouldn't have any impact, 'cause our drivers still would be union drivers under this program. It's just they would not be required to have a Class B or passenger endorsement.
Okay, thank you.
We also want to revisit the idea of the dispatch software. This was in the original RFP, I think it's almost 6 to 7 years ago. So currently, the way we dispatch, residents call in an hour in advance, they talk to one of our dispatchers. Everything is written on paper, in logs, and they call out to the drivers who then write on logs. And so the benefits of a dispatch software would be allowing scheduling the same day or even earlier, would be better planning. These softwares also have the ability with algorithms to adjust driver scheduling based on newly scheduled rides, creating optimized routes based on locations. Rides would be ideally scheduled by phone, app, or computer. This would allow our residents who have either English as a second language or speech disorders to be able to also utilize the service. It also gives the options to those the residents that, you know, are very technologically proficient that maybe just want to use the app. And not have to talk to somebody. They would be able to schedule their rides. Also, better reporting tools and statistics. The way that I get all of these numbers for you are using Excel spreadsheets or paper. It's very time consuming and having a software would allow getting all of this information a lot faster, saving me time, saving our foreman time, and it will allow staff to focus on supporting the residents and supporting our drivers.
Kelsey, does it exist on the shelf right now? Does this software exist?
We have been looking at a number of softwares, and if this is the direction that we are able to go into, we would very much enjoy the process of locating a software that would work with our community.
We have.
So we have options.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have been down this road before.
Yeah, I
And part of the
remember.
challenge in implementing the software in the past has been trying to mirror it with our existing service. Implementing a new software would pretty much mean we are going in a different direction in terms of how we deliver the service.
We'll leave that up to you. But this could be linked to myrossmore.com.
Absolutely.
Linked, but not necessarily embedded.
Here you
Okay.
go. Okay, 2 different words, yes. But I will say again, I have been approached by several people who either have language problems or cannot use the telephone, and something like this would be
Mhm.
really, really beneficial.
I agree.
I think we would see
I bet you'd see
Increase.
increase.
absolutely increased demand.
Mhm.
For the convenience that this would offer,
Yeah.
you're gonna see ridership
With
spike.
the vans too, you know, anyone might want to take it to a club event, you know?
Yeah, yeah, or avoid the gym parking lot.
Do you
You
see
say
this,
it, I don't.
do you see this, speaking of events at Rossmore, do you see this extending hours? Because I know that's an issue for some people that say often, I'd love to go to a movie, I'd love to go to a whatever, but it's nighttime.
We'll get
Is
there.
it
We'll get there
Someday?
someday.
No, but in
No, oh, in the
presentation.
presentation. Oh, we keep doing that,
I'm
don't we?
sorry.
We're very
I
sorry.
appreciate your
It
excitement.
pre-sells the.
We are
We are
very
excited.
I
sorry.
appreciate
We
it.
are excited. I have to go to BART tomorrow. How fast can we make this?
I'll give you a ride.
That's the next portion, when we talk about art.
Okay, you guys are just like mind readers.
I know.
swear.
We're like the students, you know, that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so our next part is downtown coordination. And so to create more efficiency, we would like to focus our drivers in the valley and the shopping center and coordinate downtown with County Connection. County Connection travels to the downtown area utilizing the Rossmore Shopping Center and Route 1. And Route 1 also stops at the BART station, which connects to other lines such as Route 4 and 5 to travel to other surrounding areas, including Broadway Plaza, as well as John Muir Medical Center and Kaiser Shadelands. Route 1, it runs Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And it connects to 14 other lines. And just perspective, on average, GRF provides 18 residents per day to downtown. Over 10-hour service, that's less than 2 residents per hour. And to run downtown is about an hour of our drivers' time. So if we keep our drivers in the valley, we anticipate our time would be more responsive and a shorter wait time within the valley or right outside the gates.
So this bus would then just take them to the next
Yep,
bus and
so
coordinate.
Yeah, so we would take them to the shopping center, which you see that bus stop there. It goes to the BART station. That BART station connects to 14 lines. And that County Connection also has a paratransit line for anyone that does need paratransit assistance. It is eligibility required, but it's $5 per day. Link does come into Rossmore. Their big buses don't come in here, but the Link does, and it would provide the entry service like our buses do. So anyone that does require paratransit assistance to go throughout Walnut Creek, they could sign up for Link and they would have the same service.
And Link is the county's
Yes,
service
so you'll see them. It's the smaller buses. They are permitted to come into Rossmore.
Thank you.
I know County Connection is not a charity, but just picking up on Dwight's discussion later, well, I don't know how we would subsidize 50 cents at a time or something, but I'm just throwing that out there.
So this is a huge shift. We've been providing downtown service in various forms for quite a while. And if you ever go to the shopping center, you see the big County Connection bus on an hourly basis. They stop
Sitting
there and they go to BART, that links you to everywhere.
Yeah.
If you are typically used to calling and getting a GRF or a Rossmore bus and going to downtown and then coming directly back, you're not gonna be overly happy about this because you're going to get the Rossmore bus to Safeway, get on a County Connection, go to BART. They have the downtown trolley, which is every 20 minutes, it's free. But it is, you're coordinating. If you rely on transit, you're used to having to do that. Is it the most convenient? No, but what we gain is the ability to offer that more rapid, direct service with a smaller vehicle within the valley and to Safeway and that kind of core, which is what we do the most of. So you're saying downtown becomes more or less your responsibility, but there is a link there through Route 1 to BART and then beyond, wherever you need to go.
And I mean, I can understand what you're saying about the cost of our buses with one person in a big bus with a driver. The cost of that is quite high and this looks much more efficient. Are those costs related to the coupon?
All of our operating costs are
sure, it's
related to the
operating.
coupon, so a
I actually knew
significant,
that, I just wanted to.
a significant portion of our transit budget ends up, and we do get some Measure J funding that helps offset that downtown service. So we'd have to modify our application in the future if we continue to apply for Measure J.
Jeff, you mentioned the County Connection one bus is only hourly.
They are at Safeway on the hour.
So is there a chance that there would be increased ridership if we made this change? Is there a chance the County Connection would cooperate in providing more frequency?
They are open to discussions. I've had discussions with them about even coming into the gate, so we wouldn't have to do
Oh, wow.
Safeway. Talk to them about weekend service. So they're open to discussion. They are really driven by ridership. And if you look at that bus right now, I hardly ever see, I mean, you're talking about 60 passenger, or 40, whatever it is. So they may be more motivated by ridership.
Because that would make it more convenient if it was more frequent.
Okay. So continuing, the coordination with downtown. So once residents are downtown, using the shopping center in Route 1, they can hop on Route 4, which Jeff mentioned is the downtown trolley. The trolley operates Monday through Friday, 6:50 to 8:30. Takes about 20 minutes to do the full loop around the downtown. And it starts and ends on Broadway Plaza and downtown BART. The trolley also runs weekends 9:30 to 6:50. And since Route 1 doesn't operate on weekends, residents can use the GO-GO program or other shared ride services. But I'll mention that if you take a look at both maps, they look pretty darn similar between the trolley and our downtown locations. And that is because each of our stops are within walking distance or directly at all of the trolley stops. That includes Target, Lesher, CVS, Whole Foods, Kaiser. So where the trolley goes are pretty close to where our downtown stops are already going. So if the residents do want to get to the stop that we currently go, Route 1 and the trolley would also get them there. And for additional subsidy programs, we'd like to use them to supplement weekend and after hours and establish ongoing partnerships using Lyft Concierge and Lyft Pass. They would provide residents with greater independence beyond the hours and locations that we cover with our transportation department. City of Walnut Creek have created their own model with Lyft Concierge and Lyft Pass, and that is something that we would like to continue to explore. So Lyft Concierge is an assisted program that the residents would request rides with GRF dispatchers. It would be for anyone that does not have access to the Lyft app. They can request rides for later, and it would be covered fully by GRF. Lyft Pass is for anyone that would be able to do it independently. They could use their own app, also schedule rides for later, and it would be subsidized with a code or a discount program.
The way I used to have that, never used it, but with the City of Walnut Creek, and they set your app up to charge them, which I actually accidentally did when I was in Utah, and I got yelled at. I
Yeah, they
did,
don't- they're
I
not
did pay, I
charging.
did pay him back. It was just an error.
So Kelsey,
Yes.
are these programs currently available?
For Walnut Creek?
The Lyft concierge? and Lyft
Yeah.
Pass?
So, Lyft Concierge and Lyft Pass, are their business, are Lyft's business side. And so for City of Walnut Creek, this is an option, through their senior transportation program. So anyone that's currently, any Rossmore resident can sign up through the City of Walnut Creek.
And so this is available for weekend service?
So what we currently have is the Go-Go Grandparent Program. What we're talking about is transitioning from that to this Lyft Concierge or Lyft Pass style program.
And what's holding us back?
We're here today.
Yes. Yeah.
All right,
I mean, this literally
this is
could
the
replace
answer.
Easy Ride
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah, it's the answer.
Can you clarify, which
Mhm.
isn't here, this is only within Walnut Creek, the city of Walnut Creek. I think that's how it was when I did that.
Well,
Like, you can't take this to the airport, that's $100 thing.
There's a
Oh,
number.
The parameters,
Somebody-
Go ahead.
so,
There's a number of ways you
Yeah.
could structure the
Okay, so
subsidy.
you
You
make
could
choices.
either, depending on what program you use or code, it's either you pay for the ride, but the ride is restricted to a geo-fenced area. Or you can provide a subsidy that pays for a certain portion of the ride and then everything else is on.
so GoGo
Oh, that's
currently is only in Walnut Creek outside of our service area and service time. City of Walnut Creek does it separately, you can set it up however you want. So it would
Okay.
just be discussions on how to set it up.
Part of the challenge has been to with Lyft and Uber is getting the responsiveness to serve Rossmore. So part of the challenge is if you want to go from your residence to the fitness center to get a
They're not
Uber
gonna do
Lyft, or if you want to go, you can't always, it seems to be getting better. And I think if we develop this program, we would see increased service because they're gonna go where the demand is.
yeah.
So summary, we would like to look into transitioning to smaller vehicles, coordinating with County Connection for downtown, and expanding the subsidy programs with Lyft for weekend and after hours. And the next steps would be to price out options for purchasing or leasing minivans, looking into the dispatch software and costs, analyzing potential demand, and costs along with recommended parameters for subsidized programs, and following up with the planning committee, the presentation for implementation of strategies involving communication and training.
So just to summarize too, to be really clear, we're looking at weekend service would not come back in the form that we had. It would
Right.
be all through this subsidized program.
Okay,
Downtown service would be through the connection. The whole purpose behind all of that is to bring more of our resources into the valley using the smaller vehicles, so you're somewhat developing our own mini Uber Lyft within the valley that's more responsive, more comfortable. So people that aren't 100% transit dependent wouldn't be reluctant so much to use it, because you can actually dial up and use your phone and get a ride to the golf course and be there in 10 minutes instead of waiting and doing it an hour in advance and then having to ride all the way around the valley and maybe 40 minutes later you get there.
yeah.
So, but that takes more capacity within the valley to offer that, because you're not doing quite as much shared ride with everybody else. So it is some pretty significant shifts in how we do things, but the new residents coming in, the more technology driven folks, they're used to using that. So that's why our ridership and so forth has gone down, because those are the options that people are accustomed to using now. So the concept of what we're seeing really across the nation is this move towards micro transit with the smaller vehicles, more ready access.
So,
No, sorry.
so Kelsey.
Yes.
I'm very impressed with this.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Don't think you're gonna hang your shingle out to be a consultant on microtransit. We need your help. But to me, the highest priority, and it seems like the lowest hanging fruit, is that weekend subsidy
Yeah.
program
Yeah,
that we could undertake as soon as possible. I also seem to think that, the minivans could be introduced on a test basis, whatever, over time. But the dispatch software is gonna be really important too, but.
yeah, I would put those two as the highest priorities. I mean, if I had to rank these.
Yeah.
And it's also the easiest to make happen. And are we looking at cost savings at some point? Someone will put together a chart that compares cost, or is that?
So the cost savings, I think we need to do a period of implementation for a while to see, because as I think Dwight mentioned, our demand likely within the valley. And then if we're looking at those hours that you brought up, do we mirror Route 1 time of 8 o'clock? Do we start to do something else? So a lot of those variables still need to be
Okay.
evaluated.
Good job.
Yes, Ted.
So a couple questions. Are we looking at, what I'd like to look at, along with all of this, is that right now it's at $14 on the coupon for our transportation department. What will this, I think that should be part of the conversation, whatever we go to, how much it's gonna save us on the coupon. So I think that should, as we come back with other stuff, that should be something we should kind of know about.
Yep.
The other one is, I didn't see anything on Presto. I know it's a research project that they're doing here, and when they get done with the research, they'll show. We happen to get a bus for here, but Martinez got dial-a-ride. And they're using autonomous cars in Martinez to take people to medical appointments and all kinds of things, grocery stores and stuff, with an autonomous car. And it's the same company, same process, but we're not getting that here. We just happen to be the study for the bus, which is fine, but should we have that as what they're doing with that, and what's the possibility of it coming in here for Presto to be able to have a dial-a-ride system, which they're already doing?
That's an excellent question.
So the current bus that we have here is kind of a demonstration project funded by federal funds through CCTA that actually has expired, but they want to continue. We all know that this is not designed to actually provide service. It's going between two clubhouses that nobody would go between for the most part, but they want to just make sure that they're more or less collecting data on how it can operate. The service in Martinez is a very specific for medical appointments, so it's not going everywhere for shopping and all of that. It is pretty specific. That's also under a grant through CCTA in partnership with County Connection. CCTA, we've had conversations with them for what could be next. They are very supportive and interested in the autonomous market, whether that is through vans, through shuttles, and other services. We want to keep that door as open as we possibly can. The idea would be to incorporate whatever they're doing into our service. So if they have minivans that are autonomous, like the one in Martinez, the ones that Kelsey showed you, could one of those be an autonomous vehicle? And this is all dependent on grant funding, on other resources, because if we were to undertake that ourselves, you're looking at, I think the quote was 10,000 a month per vehicle.
I wasn't thinking about us
Wow.
taking it on ourselves. I was thinking, I know
Can we
that
get
I know
it?
that they're trying this CETA. I've seen them at different places. In Lafayette, they had a whole tent set up and they were pushing, these are all the things we can do for you. I just was wondering when they're going to take it from their little pilot places around, if there is any talk of that, and when they're gonna be able to, this is what we can do for you. That's,
It's a market that is evolving, you know, they have to get enough demand to make it reasonable to, you know, start to implement. So to get from where they are right now to that is all part of their demonstration grants and stuff that they need to obtain. We're definitely engaged in the conversation with CCTA, and looking at what resources they have available.
well, we appear to have a tight market in 1,800 acres of land. That's a tight market compared to the city of Walnut Creek or the city of Concord or the city of Martinez, and where they would have to travel. I think that they would have a pretty good group to pick up out of here to take places, and it just seems like it'd be an attractive place. Just conversation. I just want to make sure that that's brought into those two things, looking at them as a possibility, and also how we're going to lower the coupon by whatever we switch over to.
So as I mentioned from Maxine's question, we won't really know about coupon impact because we're trying to get the resources more centralized here. What will that do to demand for people that aren't fully dependent on transit? Will it expand because you don't want to worry about the parking at the fitness center and you just would be really comfortable doing one of our bands? I can't say right now that we're gonna save a lot of money unless you want to start restricting it. And then you kind of lose the benefit of having those resources here.
Okay.
So what obstacles would there be to pursuing the subsidies, weekend subsidy programs immediately?
So we have GoGo set up already. We have to really learn a little bit more about all of the parameters of the Lyft program and the capacity, availability to serve this core, and then get that set up with those folks. So
Is that something we could see next month?
you've had more conversations with so we also would have to have the registrations with folks to make sure that it's not growing beyond our membership. So I think there's just some parameters we'd have to check before I can tell you, yes, we can have it implemented going next month.
Do we need a motion to say that we'd like to see that program pursued?
As fast as, effectively possible.
Explored or pursued?
Or do we really need a motion for that? I mean, can we just direct?
Consensus.
I think the committee can, I think we're all in agreement that that's the case. I guess the question is, I
I would look
defer,
to staff if they need
Yes.
some more.
do you need a motion? What do you need from us?
So we didn't have this as an action item for you today. I think that would be something we'd probably bring to the board. Because we'd want to do that as a permit. We've been going on the premise that we're working towards getting weekend service back, kind of the traditional. So
That's what you're saying.
I think we'd want to go to the board and say, this would be our new weekend service.
Possibly.
So a report back here next month
Mhm.
may then lead to a motion.
Yeah, why don't we do
for
it that
approval.
way?
Is that-
Okay, is that what,
Okay,
all right. But I think you hear our support, okay, which is important. And then, are there any further questions on this or?
Well, I think
Do we
seeing a
need to-
full outline, a timeline and
Yeah, that's a
plan
good idea.
for implementation would be important.
Yeah.
If
let's
that
do
holds up, getting a subsidy prioritized, then that can wait another month, but
Yeah.
Seeing a full comprehensive plan is important.
Okay, I totally agree.
Richie.
Yeah, but this is a great first step. I mean, I really applaud the fact that we took this upon ourselves to do when the, outside consultant wasn't performing the task. So this is great stuff. All right, so we don't need to do anything else. Okay, so let's go on to item number 8B, which is to discuss the future of the Rossmore phone book.
All right, so I think everybody's probably seen these little puppies. We do not put these out. I want to emphasize that so many times because when they come out, I get at least 100 phone calls.
Yeah, sure.
We don't print these little guys. The American Directory Company prints them. All we do is in November, we put a card inside the newspaper that asks everybody to fill it out so they can update their information for the listings on the pages. And then we deliver them when they get here in January and or February, depending on the snow in Illinois. So that's our whole role. That's it.
Okay.
What we get in exchange for putting those insert cards in, and part of the delivery, because we do get a delivery fee, I'll talk about that in a moment, is the pages that you see in the front of the book,
Mhm.
those community
Right.
pages, those 36 pages, that's what we get sort of in exchange for that, for helping them out. It's nice to have those community pages, but I have a feeling, even if we were not involved with the phone book, they'd still give us those community pages because they need us to update that, and they know that's a key part of the phone book. So I want to say up front that I'm not sure how much of a freebie that is, because Jory in particular does all the work of updating those pages. So that part is on us.
Excuse me for a second.
yes.
So the community pages, are they not also addressed in the other ones? In the new?
Yes, they
glossy?
are.
So this is a duplication of
Yes, it
something
is.
that we already do on our own.
Yes, it is.
So why do we even care that they're in the phone book?
Because the residents still like the phone book. The residents still get the phone book. And so some of them still like to use those pages. So for example, Sustainable Rossmore has some recycling pages in here. They have more in this book than they have in All Around Rossmore. So I forget how many we have in All Around Rossmore exactly, but I think you get almost double in this one. A lot of the other pages, yes, are duplicate. We do this because, again, we know some people are looking in the phone book. So I'm a big believer, hit them everywhere you can with communication because you never know what they're gonna open. If we were to lose those pages though, obviously we would tell everyone, please go use All Around Rossmore. It has that information you're looking for. So yes, that's not as essential.
Okay.
Um,
Great. We have a question from Leanne.
Yeah, and I get a couple of questions every year about where the information in the Rossmore community pages under Rossmore clubs comes from because they report that the contact person is incorrect.
So part of the problem that we have is that we have to send in those community pages in like August and the phone book comes out in January and a lot changes. Our recreation department, when they're going and getting the new contacts, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelsey, but I believe that happens at the end of a year. And so it doesn't line up with the phone book. And there's nothing we can do about that. The deadlines are just different. Okay, so nothing we can change on that. I also get a lot of phone calls. Again, this is why I keep emphasizing we don't print the phone book, about how someone will say, I filled out the yellow card, but I see my old number in here and my new number. And I'll call the vendor and they'll say, oh, that was an oversight. We thought it was a different person because something in their computer system wasn't lining up the addresses. Or this is the really unfortunate one. My husband or my wife passed away. Why are they still in the phone book?
Yeah.
Because if you didn't put in a yellow card, they actually keep the listing in the phone book for like 3 or 4 more years, which most people don't know. And I have gone round and round and round with the vendor who has told me if I take those people out, even though they didn't do the yellow card, then I get yelled at for taking them
Yeah.
out. So it's kind of, it is a bit of a quagmire trying to be kind of, because it says Rossmore on it, a lot of people, a lot of residents think it's our phone book. It is, but again, I just have to emphasize, we don't print it. Aside from that, the whole reason I'm actually really here is because of the cost. So we came to planning a year ago and talked about the fact that what the phone book company, what American Directory can pay us to deliver the phone books was going to come short of what it would actually cost us to deliver. We estimated at the time that it was between $300 and $400, and I was well off the estimate. We actually really tracked it this past year, and that's why I'm here now. So let me explain why. The phone books are a lot bulkier than the newspaper. Our news carriers can only carry so many at a time. And the truth is, we believe, because of our senior community, that it's important to get the phone books, if not exactly on the front porch, as close as you can without making our news carriers climb up and down stairs. Whereas most phone book companies would just drop them at your carport. And that's where you would get them. We have long believed we don't want our residents driving up over these phone books. So we still do front door delivery or close to front door delivery. We also have a lot of news carriers who have second or third jobs. So when we're trying to schedule all of this to get those phone books delivered, we have to schedule it around all of their other jobs. So my circulation supervisor literally spends the entire month of January just focused on phone books, trying to get this done. We don't want to go into overtime because that puts the money back onto us and drives up the costs. So again, their priority is get the newspaper delivered, and then when else can we do the phone book? There are some who dislike doing the phone book and they just won't do it. So we do end up spending about 3 to 3.5 weeks trying to deliver all of the phone books. The other part to this, when we talked last year with planning, one of the things that I mentioned kind of in passing, but we didn't have firm, and now I have firm. When we go into the budget this year to talk about 2026, I do need to raise the news carriers' wages by $1 an hour. Right now they're making 19. Fast food in California makes 20. I have to at least match fast food or I'm gonna lose news carriers. And we don't wanna have that happen. We are really in a great stable position with the news carriers. We have been for about 2 years. We strategized a little differently. We went after retired postal workers because it turns out they still love to walk. We went after people who were at the gyms, and we were like, hey, we're just gonna pass out our flyer. This is a great way to make money exercising. So we have a good system, but at the same time, I do have news carriers saying, you know, $19 an hour when I can go work at McDonald's for 20. I'm like, I'm on it. We're gonna tail it. So again, wages will go up next year. So the one thing I will say, the flip side that should be considered, American Directory said they get about 5,000 of the cards back. I can't verify that. That's what I'm being told, but they're saying 5,000 residents are returning those cards. And at the end of every year, we do tend to go through all 7,800 of the phone books. We deliver to all the residents in Rossmore. So you have your 6,600 homes. Those additional 1,200 go to new residents or as people ask for phone books. So there are residents who are still using those phone books. They are private. These are not put online. So residents in Rossmore can only, if they fill out the yellow card, this is really about the only place that you're going to be able to get another resident's phone number. That said, American Directory could hire an outside delivery company to still deliver the phone books if they wanted to. So now we get down to the price of it. Because of the insert, the delivery labor hours, the mileage for our carriers, the coordination and scheduling, and the increase in wages that will be coming, the cost to deliver these is $4,314 a year. The service payment that we receive from American Directory, and I have been told they can go no higher than this, is $3,182. So that means if we decide to do this in 2026, we will be covering a shortfall of $1,132.
Is that a lot more than last year, or we didn't have a
Yes, so
short?
my estimate from a year ago, and again, I was going off of an estimate because I didn't keep track of like the circulation supervisor's coordination and how much of our overtime was tied into this.
Mhm.
So I had estimated a year ago that we were between $300 and $400, and I was off. This year, we were just shy of 1,000, and next year we'll be at 1,132.
Is there any consideration for pickup, or they want them delivered?
So
They have to
I don't know,
send up to
because
their
right
own
now,
address.
like I said, last year, planning said, let's just continue delivering them. If the, sort of the consensus here is we want to look at having them try something else, then I will go back and say, our board or our planning committee has decided that we're leaning towards not doing this. And so what other options are on the table?
Mhm.
I believe because they have a lot of advertisers in
Yeah,
here, they're
they
probably
are,
like us,
probably.
that they need door-to-door
Yeah.
delivery, so they would have to hire a
Yeah,
service.
Yeah, because people
Like-
aren't gonna pick them up.
So why did they do this? They make a lot of money.
They make money.
I don't know that they
That's
make a
what
lot
I
of
see.
money,
Yeah.
but they're selling advertising.
Yeah,
But they're, number one, using Rossmore's name, which we look at what the marketing task force is all about. We're not controlling that
No, we're
messaging
not.
whatsoever.
Right.
We're duplicating the community pages with the new, much better publication that you put together, and by the way, that you sell, and we generate dollars from that.
Right.
Mhm.
And then they're expecting us to subsidize delivery? I
They see-
question this whole dynamic.
They see it as, again, they see it as a convenience, and I will say, part of what we did last year was planning said, well, let's decide to keep this and start a conversation about how many people
Actually.
really still want the phone book. And I did hear from a couple dozen people after, more that were keep it, and 3 people who were like, I can live without it. But I don't know that you can really judge that off of a couple dozen people. You just really can't. So what I used it more as the barometer was all 7,800 phone books got distributed. So I will say that I do believe our residents want and are using these.
You know where they go in our neighborhood? Right into the recycling
I know.
bin. They go,
And-
never even enter the home.
And that is part of the problem, right? We have no way of knowing of those ones that we have actually distributed, how many of them
Right.
are being kept.
Right.
You know, the one option that we could go back to American Directory, and again, I don't know how much of it, their advertising is tied to that door-to-door delivery, but we could say, we'll take your phone books, but we're gonna put them in racks like we have the newspapers, or there'll be distribution points throughout Rossmore, and let that be. But again, right now, what our deal is with them is to handle delivery. So what I'm trying to do is gauge from the planning committee what you would like us to explore, because I believe $1,132 is too much to put into the coupon and ask our residents to pay as an offset. It was 300 or 400 wasn't so bad, but when you start talking 1,000, and that price is gonna go up with labor cost, it will go up. So again, my staff recommendation is that we end the agreement and talk with American Directory about what other options they have.
So Maxine
I
had her
have
hand up
just
first, and then we'll go you. and then you.
Quickie question.
Yes.
When NetSuite gets fully implemented, will residents have the opportunity to see, like if I wanna know where somebody lives or want a phone number of somebody I met, and that's the only way I think I can get it?
I don't know the answer to that, Maxine, but I'll find out. I just
Because
don't
if
know.
that's going to be happening in the future, I don't need the phone book. I do
What you're
occasionally.
talking about is a directory in
A directory in-
myrossmore.com.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Well, that's big.
So
I
if that's
don't
the case,
know.
we
I
don't need
mean,
a
there
phone
would be
book.
privacy issues, so I would need to be sure that NetSuite had some sort of setting that would allow us
Oh,
to
to opt
allow
out.
people to opt in or opt out. I guess I will say that, you know, based on how NetSuite's being implemented right now and
Could
what
be
the other
years.
things we have
Could be a
coming,
long
you're
time.
probably talking a couple of years before
Yeah.
something like that could be done.
So I'm a heavy user of the phone book. At least once every 2 years, I get into that thing.
I was gonna say, I didn't take it.
And I've always thought of why we have it. So, I mean, I see these numbers here and stuff, and I would like to see a blank page instead of us discussing this. And that's my opinion. I think that we can go back to them. They will probably, like you said, distribute it anyway, because they're making money on the advertising. We're not.
Let them
We
do
do have an issue that we are not gonna be able to control what the cover will look like and the title that come off it, but I don't think it's gonna go away because they're gonna make money and they'll figure a way, and they will probably do drop-off stations is the way that they'll distribute it here. Everybody who wants a phone book will be able to get it. You're gonna have at least 4 or 5 people who will go and grab those books and save them and possibly use them over the course of the year. The rest will stay in the case and probably get wet and moldy and everything else. But I'm just saying, I don't know, my thing is, I don't know why we have this.
I have a suggestion.
Yes,
I
thank you.
suggest we take a year off.
Oh, let's see.
I mean, they can't update phone numbers to the most current. They don't know who's dead or alive. You know, the club information is incorrect. We don't need the community information pages. They're using our newspaper to distribute their information. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a rotten business. Let's take a year off.
All right, I like that.
I have another question.
Yes,
Is there
please.
any way
See what they
to,
do.
huh?
What's that?
Is there any way to poll the community real quickly to see?
Real quickly, no.
No.
We could do it, and I'm coming early, like, we wouldn't start the process with the phone book company until July, August, so that's why I'm having this conversation now. We could put out a survey. The one thing I'll say about surveys, right, is if you feel very passionate about something,
You're gonna fill it
you're
in
gonna
and
fill
send
it out.
Right.
If you don't, you're gonna ignore it. So what we're gonna get is a number that's probably very heavy on the phone book.
Yeah, I don't like the $1,000 either. I'm not sure we need it. My concern is in response to Dwight's reference to how people up on that hill respond to things is very different to how people on the other side of Rossmore respond.
Right.
I don't know.
And my concern is looking like we're taking something else away. And so I have a little concern about that. I know lots of people.
So just for the record, though, American Directory could stop this tomorrow, right? This is not really ours.
I think they should
What
pay
we're
for
talking
delivery.
about
Yeah.
is the delivery.
Yeah.
And certainly one of the things I could do is go back and say, look, our planning committee is talking about wanting to take a year off because of the cost.
Right.
And
If you
then
want to
use
pay
it
for
as
the
leverage.
actual cost of the delivery, we could continue this. I already know that they're gonna say no because they're saying they can't turn a profit if they have to pay me anymore. But we make that an option, right? So if that's where we want to go, I will simply go back. I've already done some of this. Like, one of the things that we did a year ago that I was like, we are absolutely not doing this year. We were doing business deliveries to their advertisers. And I said, no, they're not our residents. We're not gonna do that because that cost alone was like $320. So we've already stopped some things that we can. But even at that, you're looking at $1,000
I'm
to offset it.
And by the way, people that use the phone book, they get to keep their phone book.
Right.
from
And it
last
is-
year.
You're
from
right.
last year.
It's good for,
That's-
yeah.
Good for you.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so do you feel you have enough direction
Yes.
from the committee? Okay, and anybody else questions? Because we're.
Does
like,
this
really
require a
getting along
motion?
here.
Well, that's my question. If we're gonna
Yeah.
actually
You want
take
a
a year
motion?
off, do we
Yeah,
wanna
I
ask the
think
whole
that
board?
I'll go
Because
with
it's
that
just 4 of you. We're actually talking about stopping delivery.
Oh,
We're not just
then-
talking about
okay.
testing something.
Well, could you report back next month on their reaction?
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you do that, and then
Okay.
we'll decide
They may
next
have an
month what
option
to
that
do.
works
You
for
bet.
them.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that,
I'd
I
be
think
happy
you
to.
might get a little traction there.
I feel bad for this lady who has been
She
wanting to
has been
speak.
so patient.
I want to hear what she has to say.
Okay, so we are now moving on to our residents forum.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and appreciate your, have to be, let Joy,
Joy has to
Joy call,
announce
she
the-
has to read something.
Then you talk to the
But you can come up here and sit down if you want.
Come sit down over here.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay.
Just,
So residents have up to 2 minutes to address the committee. The committee does not directly answer questions posed by speakers during the residents' forum, but it does hear the viewpoints and ideas presented, and members do consider them as they act during the meeting. Speakers must conduct themselves with proper decorum, consistent with community standards that would not be offensive to a reasonable person as determined at the sole discretion of the GRF board. Participants may not engage in personal attacks, threats of any kind, or any other disruptive behavior. Speakers violating these rules may be expelled from the meeting and precluded from speaking at future meetings as determined by the board. And our speaker is Susan Manata.
Well, I'll just read my memo. Cheryl Hines was
Can
at
you
the,
just state for the record, thank you, and your address?
my address.
Thank you.
Pine Knoll Entry 3. I'm at 2201 Pine Knoll, Unit 2. I'm very concerned about the bus service. I use it all the time. And when I heard that there was a meeting about transportation, I knew that I should come. And I sent this email to Cheryl on the 8th about the bus service. So shall I just read it? How many minutes do I have?
You've started, so you're probably at what, 1:30 here? Can you see the timer?
Yes, go ahead, we'll tell you.
Okay, for many of us at Rossmore, bus service is not just an amenity, but a necessity. It is one of the main reasons why many of us moved here. We look forward to remaining independent. I'm a member of the Rossmore Low Vision Support Group. Every month we meet new people who are realizing they will not be able to drive much longer. Many people in Rossmore should not be driving. My husband and I moved to Rossmore in 2017 from Paso Robles, where my husband worked as a bus driver for 8 years. We both understood that a fully loaded bus is the most efficient means of transportation. We often rode the Rossmore bus. We were happy to avoid the traffic and parking issues by taking the bus downtown. My husband died in 2019. I have relied on the Rossmore bus for my errands and grocery shopping since then. The Rossmore buses are modern and safe. They are gasoline powered, not diesel, and they are very clean and non-polluting. The drivers are excellent. They're professional, competent, patient, flexible, and kind. The dispatchers in the transportation office on Rockview are also excellent. Like the drivers, they continue to navigate different routes and times all day. It is my understanding that the Rossmore buses are at least partially paid for by a grant. In that case, it would be throwing money away to discontinue the bus service. When we moved here in 2017, we still had the fixed route bus service. The green line went downtown from Gateway. Other bus lines served the neighborhoods. The only bus line that was hardly used was a white line in the neighborhood situated on the other side of Rossmore Parkway from the golf course. That route was discontinued. COVID-19 changed everything and we ended up with dial-a-bus service. The current dial-a-bus system is hard on drivers. That may be one reason why it is difficult for Rossmore to recruit new drivers. Speaking to Cheryl, you mentioned that you thought it was inefficient for the Rossmore bus to drive up Ptarmigan to pick up one passenger and then return to drop off one passenger. In fact, that bus is probably transporting multiple passengers. There's no need for everyone to ride up Ptarmigan. So that may be the beginning of one round trip and the next hour is the end of another round trip. Passengers would be picked up on the way back toward Gateway and other destinations. Likewise, the passenger returning to Ptarmigan is more likely the last rider to be dropped off. Not necessarily the only rider. Is that all the time I have?
Yes. Thank you very much.
I would like to say I shop for groceries at Whole Foods downtown, and the idea of a 3 or 4 hour round trip, riding multiple buses to get back to Rossmore is horrifying. And so I would really like for you to take into consideration that a lot of us do, go to Kaiser, take multiple buses to get to a doctor appointment. It's horrifying. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anybody else? And nobody's on Zoom? Okay, next meeting, Thursday, May the 8th at 10:30, right here, and via Zoom. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.